This is a week-long exercise, and you can bet that we're going to continue keeping tabs on the developments from Uhuru Gardens there, given that a majority of the businesses are run by MSMEs. How do we bring them to the fold, and how do we leverage on technology to improve trade across the East African region? Now, I want to take you down to Mombasa, where my colleague Brian Kimani is on standby, and he's going to be interviewing none other than Walter Ongeti, the CEO of the Kenya Accreditation Service, conversing around powering investment through accreditation. Take it away, O'Brien. Good evening. Well, it seems all right.
Asante sana, Regina Manyara in Broadcasting House, and you got it right. We've been here for the last 3 days discussing nothing else but how to drive accreditation services, and of course, how to enhance conformity assessments, not only here in Kenya, but in Africa and of course around the world. And this is the first international accreditation conference that was taking place here in Mombasa, bringing together more than 300 delegates from around the world. And the topic was very simple: how to enhance accreditation services in the world. The meeting was organized by various entities, and in Kenya, the leading entity here was the Kenya Accreditation Service. And the CEO, Dr. Walter Ongeti, is joining us tonight so that he can give us more insight onto the final agreement that was made in this meeting. Thank you very much indeed, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you,
for
Brian.
joining us tonight. So the meeting finally came to an end after 3 days of serious and deep-rooted discussions.
Yes.
How do you assess the performance of this meeting?
Amazing, O'Brien. It was a very wonderful success, a great success for us as the Kenya Accreditation Service. Remember that this was being organized for the very first time, not just as Kenyans, but in the entire world. Mm-hmm. No other accreditation body has conceptualized a forum, a caucus, a conference of this nature that brings together all critical stakeholders in the quality infrastructure and beyond. This included the researchers, universities, other government entities, regulators, consumer protection entities, other accreditation bodies, all of them in one room to have a conversation around issues that affect quality, issues that affect trade, movement of goods and services on the continent and in the world as such. So to us, the fact that there was very good response from all these critical stakeholders, bringing together, as you said, almost 300 players, and some of them were representing multi-economies. You have an entity that represents more than one country in the room, and that was amazing to us. The fact that the newly established Global Accreditation Corporation was able to be represented through its chair-elect was in itself amazing. The fact that the International Accreditation Forum that brings together over 130 accreditation bodies was represented, it was amazing. The chair and the vice chair of the African Accreditation Corporation was here representing again the entire continental accreditation bodies. The fact that we had the chair of the International Standards Organization Conformity Assessment Committee that sets the standards that are used across the world. The chair was present in the room. And of course, we had over 50 chief executive officers and their representatives in this particular conference for government and non-government entities. We had exhibitors coming in. We had sponsors buying into our conference, and of course this was so amazing for us, and more importantly, the rich discussions that took place, the rich papers, well researched, thought out around accreditation, around quality, around movement of goods and services, was in itself very phenomenal, and we're very excited and grateful to all those stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. Out of the 4 days that people were here, and there were different nationalities, coming from different parts of the world. What is your take home?
Our take home is that we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. We've begun this forum. Part of it was to actually demystify what accreditation is, because locally, different players have always wondered what is the difference between what we do and what the Kenya Bureau of Standards does, what do we do, and what the Kenya National Qualification Authority does. That was demystified. But beyond just demystifying like that, there were areas of policy, like for instance, developments in robotics and AI, and its impact on what we do to assess and attest to the competence of the different entities that do testing, certification and inspection. The fact that there are more changes in the environment, and we were able to, as you may have observed, see what other entities are doing, conformity assessment bodies are doing, and also the presentations around where the globe is going, what other markets are demanding, like now the issues of a digital passport for products, which is the upcoming space, and this is something that the country needs to be prepared. This is something that we as an accreditation body needs to be prepared. And of course, then our major take home here is that we have a lot of work to do. We have to dive deep into doing more research, more feasibility studies, to be able to be market ready and to develop schemes that are relevant for us. You also had the discussion and the drive towards building strong micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. And very, very recently, you saw His Excellency the President launch the Nyota program, which is supposed to empower the young people. How do we as an accreditation body, empower them through accrediting, small and medium-sized, accreditation, certification bodies as well, that can actually certify the products at that level and services, so that they are able to trade, and also finally towards the affordability of accreditation services was something that we have to reflect on, so that we are able to penetrate and permeate the country and serve it appropriately.
Mm-hmm. And of course, during this meeting, it came, the issue of accreditation in Africa, came out strongly.
Yes.
And you could hear speakers after speakers, saying that accreditation services remain very low here in Africa.
Yes.
And there is a need to add more accreditation in the basket. Mm-hmm. So from here, where do we go to ensure that as a continent we boost accreditation services?
Indeed, we have a lot of work as a continent. One is that we need to continue strengthening the work of the African Accreditation Corporation, because this is where national accreditation bodies have conversations around strengthening the mutual recognition. Mutual recognition is where now certificates issued by entities that have been accredited are recognized across borders. And as you rightfully put it, we have a lot of work to do, because there are young accreditation bodies like now the Uganda National Accreditation Service, which still need to get into this mutual recognition arrangement. These need to be supported to be strong. And, we will only be strong as long as we keep pulling along together, and therefore that is some work which we need to do to bring up more accreditation bodies that are younger, that need to become arrangement members of the African Accreditation Corporation, and hopefully now the new entity organization, the Global Accreditation Corporation. We also need to continue sensitizing the different players to appreciate the importance of mutual recognition and the value of mutual recognition. Also, remember that accreditation bodies play a role of giving third-party attestation. But in between there are regulators, for instance, entities that inspect goods and services that cross borders, other entities that are in, let's say, the quality infrastructure, standards bodies. We need to continue creating more harmonization of standards so that that if we are issuing, an accreditation here to a certification body or an inspection body, and we are applying a certain standard, this standard should be applied, across board. But there's also, the need for governments to support, and you had it on the floor, that there is need for governments to really support the development of conformity assessment bodies. These are the bodies that test, the bodies that inspect, and the bodies that certify, because the cost of sustaining accreditation remains critical. Finally, I think because you also had, there's a lot of movement of staff who have been trained from one conformity assessment body to another. I think for us, we need to create a critical pool. Like for instance, for Kenya Accreditation Service, most of our technical expertise is based in Nairobi. We want to put in a robust framework where we can now have more of these technical experts and assessors spread across the country. What this will do then is to reduce the costs of transporting and moving, the assessors from one place to another. It becomes more localized. It improves the quality activities in those localized areas, and also then reduces generally the cost of assessment, and therefore the cost of accreditation, therefore creating, a more accessible accreditation services. And if this can be replicated across the continent, the better.
I was listening to is it the chair, is the director general of the African Accreditation Corporation.
Yes.
And he was saying that if we were to enhance accreditation services in Africa, we stand as a continent, we stand a chance of moving intra-regional trade by 10% in the next 5 years, which is significant when you consider the fact that we are talking about an intra-regional trade of about 14%. Do you think African policymakers are alive to this reality? And if they are, how do you expect them to behave?
Yeah, I agree, O'Brien, that they are alive. Policymakers are alive. And, policymakers is you and I and everybody else who was in the room. Sometimes we face the danger of thinking somebody somewhere else should be shaping policy. But you and I must, be able to speak to this policy. As you saw, the room had literally every regulator represented. We were privileged to have every policymaker represented in the room, and so it is possible to shape that particular policy, not just locally, but on the continent. That intra-Africa trade at 15%. Shifting it upwards in that regard, and indeed it is because if you had the Trademark Africa representatives say that sometimes it takes 40 days because of failure to recognize each other's certificates, moving cargo from let's say Mombasa going all the way to Zambia or something like that. So if indeed we can be able to reduce those, because the delay comes into the conformity assessment activities not being trusted. So this truck would stop at every stop being inspected. Is it the same 50 tons that left Mombasa? Is it the same maize? Is this maize acceptable? Is it the moisture content? Is it acceptable across borders? Now, if a certificate was issued in Mombasa and this truck is going, let's say, to Kigali, and you can trust the certificate issued by an inspection body in Mombasa, and you reduce that to just about 2 days. You can imagine the level of trade. The conversation that was on the floor is that sometimes goods can actually leave here and go to Europe in just about 8 to 10 hours, but take 40 days across the continent. And therefore, we think that if we can actually trust and enhance accreditation services so that we reduce the retesting, not only in terms of increasing in trade, a percentage shifting up by 10% in 5 years, but also the costs that is related to that trade. Because if you can imagine, if you are re-inspecting every other time, you are then paying this truck driver and maybe a ton boy, for all those 40 days, it becomes more expensive. But therefore, it means that if we have increased accreditation services, we'll also have, we'll spend less and therefore facilitating more trade.
Mm-hmm. And talking about, facilitating trade, I know for the longest time Kenya has always had desires to export halal products, especially to the Middle East. And, one of our prime market has always been the Saudi Arabia or the Saudi Arabian market.
Yes.
And I know there are now conversations between the Kenya Accreditation Service and the GCC, which is going to unlock that market. I'm sure you want to tell us something about that.
Yes, indeed. Kenya already has a memorandum of understanding with the Gulf Accreditation Center, which then accredits conformity assessment bodies that certify for purposes of halal. And it's because that market has that specific market requirement that the accreditation must be by GCC in this case. So our memorandum of understanding is to build capacity between ourselves. Remember, these are peer accreditation bodies, and therefore we have a memorandum of understanding to be able to capacity build each other, to do joint accreditation of entities that then will do halal certification. We have other players on the market. Like now, we also are having discussions with SUPKEM in this regard, so that we carry all the stakeholders on board. There is a huge market there for beef animals and beef products, and of course then the desire here is to do value addition to this product, so that most of the products in that regard are exported as value added, because in other circumstances, and you may have observed it, that we are exporting live animals because of that element, and therefore we want to, and the farmer does not get the full value, or the traders in this case. And some of the animals are actually lose their lives along the value stream. So we look forward to exploiting more of this, and we were glad that also the Gulf Accreditation Council was represented in this conversation, and we will build on that as well.
Very good. Before I let you go in 30 seconds,
yes,
tell us what would be the lingering effect of this meeting going forward?
We look forward to, and that already happened, look forward to more inquiries. We look forward to engaging further. We look forward to the second International Accreditation Conference, but also then look forward to supporting many other conformity assessment bodies, especially the MSMEs, so that then we can open up the market. And we look forward to engaging more accreditation bodies on the continent, so that we facilitate more trade. We must shift the trade, the intra-Africa trade, from the average 15% to much more in the future. And we as Kenyans are looking forward to playing that role.
Very good.
Thank you.
And we shall be here. We'll keep on circling back.
Thank you.
And of course, bouncing back into the arena.
Thank you. But allow me
this kind of conversation.
Thank you. But allow me, with just 10 seconds, Brian, to sincerely thank KBC for the partnership that we've had, and also the other sponsors like Kengen, Trademark Africa, Kenya Power, and others. We really sincerely thank you. You have been with us all the way from the pre-conference to today. Thank you so much.
We'll continue to do this, because this is what we do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Asante.
Asante.
Dr. Walter Ongeti is the CEO of Kenya Accreditation. Service joining us here tonight, of course, to help us and put some words as to what has really happened here in the last 4 days and what is expected going forward. O'Brien Kimani is my name. Thank you very much for joining us. We're taking you back to Broadcasting House.